You're listening to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. Nathan Nottingham is your host today, and he'll be chatting with Adam Baumlein.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home, and I am Nathan Nottingham. With me today is another Vetted VA professional in our series where we are spending time interviewing and getting to know a little bit more personally the men and women that make up the Vetted VA community, those that are professional, licensed real estate and mortgage professionals and have been a part of Vetted VA for quite some time. And with me today is Adam Baumlein out of Ohio, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I like Ohio's coming out of my mouth. I thought, it's
Forget
not
it.
Iowa. No, it can't be Iowa. And so appreciate you being here, Adam. You're with Stratton Mortgage. You've been a mortgage professional for a number of years. You've been with Vetted VA almost since the very beginning. You were an early adopter with us. You tested, you've trained, you've been an advocate for veterans inside and outside. You yourself, like me, a civilian, did not serve, but we have family ties to it. So I'd love to know more about you, where you come from, and your background.
Yeah, so I am born and raised my entire life here in Ohio. I'm actually from outside of a small town, Northwest Ohio, outside of Findlay, Ohio. So went to a very small high school, graduated with 69 people. Came down to Columbus for, believe it or not, a Ohio State football game with some other buddies, and transferred to college here and went to Ohio State. We graduated 2004. I've actually been in Columbus ever since. And that's
Nice.
actually when I started mortgages. So this is what, year 21. So long time, been through some waves, some crashes, some real hard times. Obviously learned a lot. I've been a mortgage broker. I've worked at the largest of a larger bank, Chase. I've been a mortgage banker as well too. We opened Stratton Mortgage. I'm one of the owners of Stratton Mortgage. We did open in 2016. So we're coming up on almost a decade there as well too, of ownership. So
That's awesome.
Been in Ohio the entire time. You know, this is our primary market. I do operate in some other markets. People from Ohio tend to go to Florida, tend to go to North and South Carolina. Some people go to Texas, things like that. So I operate there, but primarily operating in and around Ohio.
Ohio's one of those states when you look at a map, you think it's farther west than it actually is. And then you're like, but I thought that was all the East Coast. And every time I look at a map, I'm always stopping somewhere around like Missouri. And I was like, no, Ohio's farther east than that. I gotta keep going. So, so it's one of those states that kind of
weird.
Yeah. You're in there, you're considered a little bit more of the Midwest, but not quite. It's you're out there a little bit. But it's a great spot. And in fact, I was seeing you've got some military bases in Ohio as well, right?
So the closest one's going to be Wright Pat. It's the Air Force Base in Dayton, which is roughly an hour away from here. Which we've got some ties into there. But that's our biggest installation, you know, by far. There's some other stuff here, but that's the major one.
That's the big one. Why VA lending? I mean, you've been in lending since around 2004 when you graduated college, kind of like similar with me. We got in when we were early. We didn't know any better. It gets in your blood. You're like, I can't get out.
Yeah.
I like this too much. Like, that's what I do. Why VA lending? What drew you to that?
It didn't start that way, honestly. It actually started like probably 2009, I would say. Market turned. I actually went and worked at Chase. And I was introduced to the VA IRRRL program, right? Because they're a large institution and a lot of rates were coming down. People were doing refinancing. Took some training there, and I'm like, oh, this is a really, really good program. And I was doing it nationwide. When I left Chase, I came back out into the retail world and doing a lot of purchase transactions. I wasn't doing a lot of VA transactions because I was operating here I'm in Columbus, Ohio. Not a massive VA loan area compared to Dayton, for example.
Yeah.
As I started growing it and doing it, getting into VA lending, it actually started when my brother PCS from Lemoore in California to Norfolk, and they got taken advantage of. Bad real estate agent, bad lender, ended up having to do a bunch of stuff and go back and fight it. And it got me upset, to be honest with you, because it's not only is it family, but it's someone serving the country, and they're literally uprooting their family across like the farthest you can pretty much go.
Right.
And they had a horrible experience. And
Yep.
so I started digging into the VA loan, started learning about it, said, okay, great. We need to start doing more of these. And I was doing some.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and then I met Chris, and that was through a text message. We were doing some things with the VA, and I offered to test out and try some things. And I was invited to participate in Devetta VA, which
Yeah.
is probably one of the best things I've done. um, just the training and learning and really being able to fully understand and more importantly, have the support of all the other moderators, which we talk about, on almost a daily basis, and just learning things that not being someone that served, being able to
Right.
talk to service members and prior service members and learn things and literally get better every day. So that's where it really, really changed for me. And then, of course, I go out and advocate for that. And then that led into both of my cousins are Air Guard, and
Hmm.
they're younger than me and wanted to purchase a home, and we did VA loans for them.
Hmm.
Right. And so then that was more of a family tie there. And then that's grown into really tying into a lot of VA loans and educating all around the state of Ohio and literally doing them all over the state now. So it's,
Yeah.
it's been a good ride.
Yeah, you're you have your brother, your sister-in-law, your cousins, like people who've gotten involved in the service, and here you are able to help them out. As you've grown, and we were discussing before we started to hit record, the leadership aspect of VetaVA, the community aspect for professionals who are joining together to do this. It's not a systemization of how many more loans can I do, but it's more of like how much more service can I be? How many more people can I help, even if I don't get any business from it, because what we do to educate ourselves to be of service to the community actually helps sharpen us in our day to day in our neighborhoods. When somebody goes, "Hey, I got a question," you're like, "Oh, guess what? I've actually faced that one, or I helped somebody overcome that in a different state. I didn't do the loan, but I was able to help with that."
The-
What
I,
is some of the things you've learned, or some of the greatest takeaways in your mind? You're like, "Oh my gosh, I learned this one thing, and I share this all the time."
That's a good question. So, and it does. I've had vets call me now just and ask questions. Hey, I'm doing whatever state I'm not even licensed in. I need help. Tell me about this, that, whatever, and we'll provide objective advice. I'm sure there are vets here in Ohio that have called me and asked me questions, and I didn't do the loan. We were
Yeah.
simply providing information. Um, I have a lot of local real estate agents and/or other lenders here in Columbus. They will call me now. They will
Hmm.
say, "Hey, I know you do a lot of VA loans. I've got a question on X. What
Yep.
does how can I help?"
Yep.
I think the biggest thing that I've learned, and honestly, I made this mistake with a VA loan one time, is I did not pull the certificate of eligibility first.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I had a gentleman who served in the Marine Corps. He happened to serve during peacetime. He had some things happen where he went Marine Reserve. He wasn't eligible for the VA loan,
Yeah.
and it was a big learning point for me.
Yep.
So just understanding the process, knowing that, seeing what some lenders don't do in terms of qualifying someone for a VA loan. So pulling
Right.
COE, looking at residual income, which is very important. Those are some of the biggest things that I've learned, and the flexibility of the program. You don't have to have a perfect credit score. In fact, there is no credit score requirement. There's lender overlays, right? But helping to educate that and convey that to not only the consumer, the veteran, but also other industry professionals, because other institutions will say that, hey, the VA says this, right?
Yep. Right.
The VA has not said that. That's don't you can't say that. That's your institution. Now maybe you don't
Right.
do it, and that's okay. Just like I have lenders that won't do certain things. That's not the VA saying that. That's that institution. So learning
That's
those
right.
overlays and learning that and being able to convey that effectively, I think is important.
You know, you hit on it. And I think it was a big thing. We learn things pretty heavily when emotion is tied to it, and it's either through great success or a great failure point, like an
Mhm.
embarrassingly bad failure point. And I think acknowledging pulling the COE early enough in the transaction, how that affected the Marine you were helping. like, I didn't pull where I should have. I should have pulled
Yeah.
that COE. Let's talk about the COE. We don't in these interviews I've been doing. This topic doesn't come up quite as often. We've learned all sorts of things about inspections and appraisals and using your VA loan, multiple times. But the certificate of eligibility, when you and I started lending, it was actually you were just looking for a DD 214. Like you're like bring in your DD
Yeah.
214, and we didn't really have Web LGY or Webly as we call it now with the VA where we could log in and just anybody could pull a COE. It was a little bit more like I remember talking to some Vietnam veterans. I'm like, hey, I need your DD 214. They're like, I
I don't have
like
it. Yeah.
really like it's been 30 years. I don't understand why you need this. Like, and so now it's a lot easier. But let's talk about the COE. What are we looking for? What does it tell us? How does that? Why is that the best first step if somebody goes, I want to buy a house with my VA loan?
Well, number one, most importantly, it's going to tell us that they're eligible for the VA loan,
Yeah.
right? So it's one of the benefits that's been earned. We need to make sure that that's a benefit that you can actually take advantage of. And so that's number one, most importantly. Number two, it's going to give me some other information in terms of, are you receiving disability pay? Are you exempt from the funding fee? Do you have any entitlement that's currently charged to you? In fact, literally just last night here in the office, my business partner came in, gave me a COE, 2 loans on there, one in foreclosure, one they currently have. We got to calculate. He goes, man, I don't think we can do this. I said, well, hold on. Did you calculate, how much remaining entitlement did they have? Well, we come to find out, guess what? He can purchase another property. In this case, no money down using the VA loan. He was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. I almost told him that we couldn't do that. I said, this is why you've got to pull this and look at this, because it can tell you what you can and can't do with the VA loan, which is incredibly important.
So let's talk about the moment for a second, because you said you saw a foreclosure on the COE, but or an encumbrance, right? You see that on there, but yet he can still be qualified or eligible with his eligibility. With eligibility remaining entitlement. Like, what does that look like? How if somebody was facing that? 2008 was rough for everybody. Like we've all gone through ups and downs. Yeah. Somebody has some dings and dents on their past. Like, how do we get through that? How do we get around it?
Good question. And this is what I've heard almost every single time. Hey, Adam, I was young. I made a mistake, because it's typically most of the ones that I've seen it's from a long time ago. Yeah. I made a mistake. A life event happened, and I had a foreclosure.
Yeah.
Listen, people go through life events. People go through bad credit periods. People go through periods of late payments. It happens to everybody. It's hey, listen, this is okay. This doesn't mean that you can't go get another VA loan. There's still eligibility there. You have remaining entitlement. And especially today with the increased loan limits, a lot of people are surprised. They're like, wait a minute, I didn't think I could do this. I didn't think I have to pay this money back, or I can't get another VA loan until this. And that's actually not the case. And so that's one thing I said, listen, we've got to let us pull your COE. We've got to look at this. You may be surprised about what you can actually do and still use this benefit that you've earned. So it's not just because it's there. That's not an automatic disqualification. And I've heard from, hey, you know what? X lender told me I've got a foreclosure on. I can't do it. I can't use my VA loan, or I can't have more than one VA. I can't have more than one VA loan at the time. Yes, you can. We have to look at this to see what you can and can't do. So
you got to do the calculation on it.
You got to do the calculation.
I think the takeaway is like foreclosure or a deed in lieu of foreclosure, or a foreclosure issue, or some sort of encumbrance that is tied up. Maybe that eligibility has not been freed back up, the entitlement, but the calculation can still run, especially if that transaction was settled. So the VA kind of holds on to your entitlement, says, look, we guaranteed this much towards that one purchase, and you foreclosed. You had some life happens, right? Life events happen. But the VA is like, we're still out this money. So we're not going to give you back the eligibility or entitlement for that money. But what you're saying is, based on the overall calculation, there could be eligibility left. on their entitlement. And at which
Yeah.
point you're like, okay, it's as if you still own the house, but you don't own anything on it. So we can't say you have full entitlement, but we can do a partial entitlement. Here's what you have left and remaining.
Well, there's that, and a lot of times if it's an older foreclosure, right? So when I started, your loan limit was $417,000.
That's
It's
right.
almost double that today.
Yeah.
And so someone goes back and says, "Oh, I can't." They told me I couldn't, and it's a human mindset. Oh, I can't do it, and they kind of move on, right? They don't think about it again.
Mhm.
And I think that people don't realize especially in today's lending environment, the opportunity is there, and they do need to go look at that again because they might be surprised about what they can and can't do. But talking to a VA, someone who takes the VA loan seriously and is practicing it on a regular basis, you could come to find that there might be some options out there that you don't know about.
Um, how has it been for you in Ohio talking to real estate professionals about the VA loan? What do you find to be the common response back? I understand there's a base in Dayton, right? And you've got some
Hmm.
some guard, you have some activity around you, so it's not a fully like what's military. You probably don't get that kind of response. But what's the common either misconceptions or the things that you face regularly when talking to real estate professionals around you?
Well, first, if I go in and around Dayton, VA loan is very common. It's an entirely different conversation. It's an entirely different process. It's pretty normal. I don't use the term
Hmm.
accepted, but that's like the common use of financing there, right? And so
Sure.
the realtors and the title companies and the industry professionals, they're used to seeing the VA loan process and so forth. Now, if I get outside of that, if I'm here in Columbus or Cincinnati or Cleveland or Northwest Ohio, it's not necessarily as prevalent. Um, it really truly depends on the knowledge of the realtor and or their want or desire to understand the loan and the process and how it works. They'll ask me some questions about myths and things and that I'll educate them on and say, hey, look, in fact, I just did it this morning with an agent, was asked me a couple of things, about the termite inspection and the seller having to pay for it.
Yeah.
What does the appraisal look like and tidewater and reconsideration of value? And I said, hey, look, these are all benefits that you've been, I don't say miseducated, but someone told them something wrong in the past, and they don't know because they don't deal with it every day, right? Or they may
Right.
not, and so they don't know, and so I have to spend some time educating them. There are a lot of really good real estate professionals that will listen, that will understand and love that. Occasionally, just like with any industry, you run into somebody who maybe won't. It's a little unfortunate, but
Yeah.
that's the business that we're in. I do my best to educate them and let them know and do what we can do to try and support that loan type. I do feel like more often than not, their understanding of it, and if they get someone like me who understands it or can explain things to them, it absolutely makes a difference.
I think that's the biggest thing is it continues to impress upon me the more I've thought about this quote by Mark Twain, the more I find it just relevant in every aspect of my life. But it's not what you don't know that's going to hurt you. It's what you just know for certain that just ain't so, right? That's
Yeah.
what really gets you into trouble. It's like that's the thing when I talk to pros and they're like, and I'm seeing it online too. We run ads for Veta VA, we run places, and you know, um, disenfranchised, disgruntled, people will hop on and say all manner of terrible things as keyboard warriors on social. And my response is not to get mad back, but honestly to feel bad for them because they heard something either once or twice that was incorrect, but did not know or have they didn't have the knowledge or the support with which to go and counter what they were told to research it on their own to understand, hey, that's not right. Like the VA lender handbook says there is no minimum credit requirement. And so because the lender tells you you have to have a 640 or better or they're not going to talk to you or 620 or whatever it is, it's like, okay, there's a discrepancy. Why is there a discrepancy? And then if you were to research farther, you go, oh, Well, Ginnie Mae backs up all the VA loans, right, to put them in the pooling of Ginnie Mae, and they want a credit score, but it comes down to what the lender's comfortable doing, what their risk analysis is. And so it's what I love to encourage people is like, look, just because you heard something from a dependable source, even a licensed professional, does not make it the only answer out there.
So okay. So first, let's look at this slogan, right? Trust but verify. Number one.
Yeah.
Number
Right.
two, I will say that
Boom.
as an industry professional, one of the best things that I've learned, and this isn't specific to the VA loan, but being part of the VA community and the training that we go through and how we're doing things, is even myself, who's been doing this for 21 years now,
Mm-hmm.
the ability to know where to go to look something up and validate and verify a piece of information, right? And learn and say, oh, hey, you know what? I learned something new today. In fact, that's the call I just got off before here. The real estate agent, he learned something new today. I was in a conversation with my business partner yesterday. Last week, I was adamant that I was right. And I even pulled up the guideline it was a convention, the Fannie Mae guides.
Mm-hmm.
And when we reread it and looked again, I said, oh my gosh, I was wrong. Right. So that's one of the biggest things I've learned, and the biggest takeaways from the group is continuing to improve. And sometimes you might be wrong about something to go verify, and maybe you got to go re-verify it because you might have read something incorrectly. So I totally agree with you there.
Yeah. It is those things we have to be double checking, which is why, Veta VA, everything we do is not about memorizing sources or memorizing information within sources. It's more about knowing what your sources are all the time. And we see this, and it helps us in everything, right, Adam? You don't just do VA loans. You're in conventional loans and FHA loans and USDA loans and investor DSCR loans and multifamily. Like, as a broker, you can put your hands around a lot of different product types and you have to lead your team that way. So it's not what I memorize. It's where I know how to go double check all the information and then triple
Yeah.
check myself against somebody else who can double check my stuff. You can't double stamp a double. You can't
right.
double stamp.
Yeah.
You can't double stamp,
Me
triple stamp, double
specifically,
stamp.
yeah, so that's me. I
Yeah.
am pretty good about memorizing things, but gosh, how many pages is between all this stuff? It's got to be 4,000 or 5,000 pages of information you would imagine between all
Easy.
these different. There's almost no way that
Yeah.
you can memorize and know all that. And I tell people all the time, hey, listen, I just need to go double check this, right? Let me go look at the guidelines. Let me pull it up. Let me read it. And the nice thing about today's world is it's all available online. Whereas when I started, it was not. There was no, like email, just cell phones and email were literally just becoming prevalent at that point. And
That's right.
come so far that you can look these things up online now. And these guidelines are published, and lender guidelines are published, and but you've got to know where to look, right? And you've got to know how to do that research component. And I think that's key.
We used to have to pay for the service called All Regs. Remember the All
Yep.
Regs? And
Yeah.
you'd pay for this monthly so you could get in there and search the regulations, and they would keep it updated on this old school database source and site and search. And now everybody's replacing All Regs because oh, look, here's the documents and here's Chat GPT. I can put them all together and just make my own. You're like,
I used to have a binder with and I would do the 3-ring thing, and I would put it in there, and then I would change it, and I would put all the stuff, and it's like, how do I know if this is the most up to date? And you'd have to wait for new things.
They'd publish an update, and you'd go to your printer and hit go, and you go with 2 reams of paper to get your next book published. It was nuts. I remember those days.
You get a fax or the old,
that's right.
the tearaway, the computer, the green and white with the tearaway on the side. That, and you'd tear it off and put it in your So it's
I remember
definitely easier today for sure.
Well, man, I really appreciate you. I appreciate your service. Congrats on your recent promotion, earning Veta VA or VVA 6, which puts you up there in kind of an overarching leadership of the entire organization, and extremely supportive of what you're doing. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for continuing to just pour into the lives of your peers. And frankly, it's funny, say peers, they don't work for you. They don't work with you. They're even competitors to some degree, but we do it for the right reason. It's a community built to build the best source of human intelligence around. So Thanks for doing what you do. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've made it this far and you're still listening, you can find out more about Adam, find his links, get in contact with him. All that information will be in the show notes, or you can go to vetedva.com, click on the state of Ohio. It's under a Great Lake, if you're not sure where it's at, and click that state. You'll see Adam there on the top. He's located in Ohio, one of our loan officers there. Adam, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thanks for being here with me on this interview time as well.
Hey guys, I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone's service as a civilian, and glad to be part of the group and continue to help.
Absolutely. Thanks, brother. Thank you for listening to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. We hope this information has been helpful, enjoyable, engaging, supportive. But here's the biggest call to action for you. If you are a veteran, a service member, a family member of the same, and you have earned or have access to the VA home loan eligibility and have questions, please feel free to join us at Vetted VA on Facebook. Go to facebook.com, search for the Vetted VA group, and you'll find it. Answer some of the questions to enter, and once you do that, you're good to go. If you're a professional, a real estate agent, lender, insurance agent, you know the drill. Well, as a professional, we'd love to have you join the professionals only group. We do all the same information, but at a little bit different scope because, well, of how you're coming into that information to support yourself and the other consumers that you work with. So please join Vetted VA on Facebook or Vetted VA for Professionals on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok, wherever you can find it. And as always, all the white papers, the resources, the documents, and the training, the free training courses are available at vettedva.com. You'll find them all there. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. My email is nathan@vettedva.com. I'm the COO, and I'm ready to help. Glad you tuned in for this episode, and looking forward to bringing you the next one. Take care.